Hello and welcome to today's podcast. It's Friday, it's the Irish Marketing Podcast powered by IMJ and Tin Pot Productions. I'm Daryl from Tin Pot, and today's podcast is all about the 2025 Effie Awards. As you probably know, this is a big one on the annual agency calendar. It's an internationally recognised awards programme in the Irish market. It's been around for more than 50 years and in more than 125 countries, providing, I suppose, a global benchmark for marketing effectiveness and the chance for Irish brands and agencies to pitch themselves in international Best of the Best awards. And I'm delighted to say that we are bathing in the reflected glory of the Effies, because we've got interviews with 3 gold winners, that's brands and agencies alike, including NBI Broadband.
It was just that magic moment of, Jesus Christ, little old NBI making an impact.
Core.
I would never look at an Effie win in any market and wonder whether or not they deserved it.
And Boys and Girls.
Everyone wants to win an Effie. And then when the moment comes in, you kind of have that moment of, oh my God, it's real, you got it.
Upcoming, we're covering Failte Ireland's successful Daycation offering and a Foxy solution for Now TV from Boys and Girls. But first up, in the booth, we had Andy Pearce, Group Strategy Director at Core, Damien Dineen, Head of Brand at National Broadband Ireland, and Hazel Casanova, Senior Marketing Manager also at NBI. And if you happen to watch the 9 o'clock news on RTE, you have undoubtedly seen the campaign we were talking about. It won 2 golds at the Effies and, of course, featured Fionnuala Fibre of Farrell Flynn. I started the interview by asking Andy Pearce for some background. So do you want to give us maybe, I guess, it's a very competitive sector, presumably people with big budgets. So I'll start with you, Andy, in the first instance. So, what's your perspective when you're first presented with the brief in that scenario?
It actually went back to, so we worked with NBI 8 years ago, I think, when NBI was one of 3 consortia tendering to the government. And there was a conversation that was had, which was actually the rollout of the infrastructure is a bit like a weather front moving across Ireland. So there was a thought as far back as that around the weather forecast. The conversation we had internally was around a step change in terms of what was required from orders and consumer interaction. Budgets were lower than they had been the previous year. So it was a classic example of how can we get more with less.
Our mandate as part of this programme and this project was to communicate with end users to show that, the government has promised that the National Broadband Plan will be delivered, and it's going to be delivered by National Broadband Ireland. So there was an awareness message that had to be delivered. And then there was a different call to action that had to be delivered, depending on whether someone was ready to order or their area wasn't live just yet. Naturally, what clients do is create an impossible brief often and wish for the silver bullet to come through on the other end. And I think in this instance, we've been very lucky that the team behind this campaign at Core have found a silver bullet that has, brought us where we are today.
So in terms of your media strategy then, do you try and solve different parts of that problem or that conundrum with different media?
So yes and no. One of the temptations where budget is tight, regardless of the circumstance, is that we tend to try and compartmentalise and try and do too many things and fail to do all of them. Part of this approach was actually stopping ourselves from doing that in the first instance and trying to focus on one thing that could do a lot of the heavy lifting. Somewhere between 70 and 80% of the budget went on buying one spot, which was 1 minute to 9 on RTE1 80 times over 6 months. The logic behind it was, one, it's a spot that has a high level of ratings against. It indexed well for a kind of a rural audience. But the real win was that it tends to bring a lot of the same people back. People who watch the 9 News tend to watch the 9 News a lot. What we were banking on was repetition. We couldn't afford to be huge. We couldn't shout or spend our way out, but maybe we could repeat our way out of the problem.
And is there any, obviously before you go live with a campaign, you forecast, you strategize, there is presumably a little element of risk in terms of will this work or what elements of it work or what will be effective. Is there a slightly bigger risk if you're putting a bigger percentage of your spend in one area as opposed to being diversified where potentially you have more opportunity? Or were you conscious of that at the time?
Yeah, there is, because there's nowhere to hide if it goes wrong, right? But I think there's a risk in any marketing initiative that you put out there. So spreading ourselves thin is essentially a way of kind of spreading your bets. So nothing's going to work very well, but nothing is probably going to fail to such an extent that you're exposed. I think the risk is something I encourage any of the people I'm working with in our team to take on a little bit more and to be a bit bolder about it.
If we talk about the Effie Awards, and just from your point of view, Hazel, in the wider landscape of awards where there are lots of different awards, what specifically do the Effies mean? Because I think you guys won in 2 categories, is that right? Yeah. Media, idea, innovation, IT, telecoms and utilities. So it must be very gratifying to win in 2 categories. But is there anything specifically about the Effies that really resonates with you?
It's the benchmark. It's the one everybody wants to win. And I suppose it is communicating that across the whole of NBI, because the Effies mightn't mean anything to somebody as Andy said who works in accounts or IT. They don't know, they potentially don't know what the Effies is. So I've been going around saying I've won the Irish Oscars for marketing, because that is something that they can understand. Like the first one I sat down, I was texting, Damien was on holidays. He had such FOMO, God love him, but he was on holidays and I was like, oh my God, we won one. And then we'd literally, the next category, we'd won again. They're like, you're up again. I'm like, what? It was just that magic moment of like, this is groundbreaking for us as a small marketing team up against these big brands that you're like, Jesus Christ, little old NBI making an impact, making a difference. And it was probably one of the proudest moments I had in my marketing career to date.
An award like this, does it do much to lift the morale of the team generally? Does it just give that sense of a team spirit?
I think absolutely. This for me was personally a massive moment of, all the difficult hurdles we had to go through to get this campaign live. And they were difficult. This was not easy. But to get it live and to be able to look back now and say, wow, not only did we get it live, because that's when we celebrated. We celebrated when this went on TV.
And it sounds, from what you're saying, that it could have not gone ahead 1,000 times.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was never a prerequisite.
No, absolutely.
It was fight and fight at every stage.
This was a go, no go towards the very end.
Yeah.
And this was, we had a date locked in for launch date.
Yeah.
We had a date of go live on RT 1 minute before the news, 20:59, and we pulled it.
Yeah.
We just needed a bit more time as a business and with our stakeholders to say, right, have we everything ironed out of what potentially could go wrong? But ultimately it was the right thing to do, to the point where now our stakeholders are coming to the office. And the question is Fionnuala here?
What, right now? I'm Fionnuala Fibre O'Farrell Flynn, here now with broadband breaking news. Thousands are now connected to high-speed fibre broadband and... How many more thousands? Oh, wow, tens of thousands. This is breaking news. This rollout will see over 1 million people living their best lives with new fibre broadband. Gahianto. Check your air code at nbi.ie. Do you remember the dial-up?
Fionnuala Fibre O'Farrell Flynn spearheading the double Effie winning campaign for NBI. Our second featured campaign on the podcast today was for Failte Ireland, who worked in collaboration with a multi-agency team. And from that team, I spoke to Tara Moran, who's Business Director at Mindshare, Shane Doyle, Group Strategy Director at Core, and in a moment we'll hear from Deirdre O'Brien, Advertising and Media Manager at Failte Ireland.
Plan your best daycation ever at discoverireland.ie.
The campaign, if you like, was the solution to a problem, and the problem in the first case was bed stock displacement. Can you explain kind of what or how that kind of arose before we talk about how you kind of found the solution, so to speak?
Sure, and this was a really unique challenge. As you said, it was a proportion of the bed stock was taken out of the market due to Ireland's necessary response to the humanitarian crisis. And what it meant was about 10% nationally of the bed stock was taken out of the market, and in certain counties it was actually significantly more, about 15% or more. Our main business is in driving bed nights, so we did need to pivot into a day trip mode, because the reality was that the loss of bed stock was going to impact a lot of ancillary businesses. So our main goal for this campaign was to not necessarily to get people to take more day trips, but actually to engage with more paid for activities and attractions. And we needed to do it over a really crucial period over the summertime.
So the beds, like, I would think of it just in terms of hotel bookings, but of course there is a whole ecosystem around that. For for every hotel booking there is cafes and restaurants and activities and everything. So you're mindful of the whole package.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's funny when we talk about tourism, we talk about, driving bed nights, but tourism is much broader than that. We actually helped support 280,000 jobs around the country, and 70% of those are in regional Ireland. So we're helping support local communities and sustain communities so people can live and work there, but absolutely they're the ancillary businesses.
So at that point, Shane, you've got a short amount of time to come up with a solution. What next?
Yeah, I mean, part of what we needed to do very quickly, because Deirdre's outlined the focus is usually in bed nights, is we needed to create an information base as quickly as we could. And I suppose what we found was a lot of people were taking day trips, but they weren't visiting activities and attractions. So we were taking an existing activity and trying to push people into a different way of thinking about it. People are used to the term staycation, right? And what we really did was try to make people think of their day trip as more of a holiday and as more of a treat and a way of bonding with their families, etc., and put a slightly different hat on. Imagine if you thought of a day trip as your actual holiday and your best holiday ever. And I think what was most satisfying was we did exactly what we set out to do. The actual number of day trips only increased marginally by about 1 or 2%, but the revenue increased it by about 20%.
And of course, that was recognised by the Effie judges, part of the reason why the campaign picked up a gold. Shane, from your point of view, what does an Effie mean to you?
One of the best things about an Effie is I would never look at an Effie win in any market and wonder whether or not they deserved it. You might look at some that didn't get it and go, well, maybe, but it's a massive true mark of what you'd never doubt whether something was deserved. You might over a pint argue, was it a silver or was it a bronze? But I suppose it's such a recognised mark that you'd never doubt it because of the judging process and what goes into it. So I think that's really exciting. And in a way, the colour doesn't really matter because it's been recognised and it's made it into the top whatever campaigns in the country. But it is extra special. I think when the gold was called out, we were effusive.
I remember when we heard we got shortlisted, I was actually on holiday. I popped a bottle of bubbly and I was like, this is fantastic. So to actually then for it to come through with that recognition and for the team to go on stage and to see that work pay off, you don't know. You just don't. It's such a tricky format, because we do see on the night certain categories don't award anything on the night, but that does speak to the standard, the credentials, the way that Effies are conducted as an award.
There is pride in what we do and knowing that this campaign helped businesses and helped communities, but then to be recognised on a stage alongside major brands like Diageo and Allianz and Sky, for us to know that the quality of the work that we're doing is at that level absolutely is a huge boost to our internal teams and to the wider agency village. It really means a lot.
I love that you guys call it the agency village.
Yeah.
That's what the interagency team is called, is the agency village, which immediately has that collaborative feeling to it.
Yeah, because it takes a village.
It does.
It does.
Yes, yeah. That was Deirdre O'Brien from Failte Ireland, and before that Tara Moran Mindshare, and Shane Doyle from Core as well. And finally, Boys and Girls Work with Now TV was also awarded with a gold by the Effie judges for a campaign which delivered hugely improved acquisition goals and high year-on-year sales growth via a couple of animated animal brand characters. Shaunagh Farrelly, senior strategist with Boys and Girls, was good enough to join me in studio. I started by asking about the problem that demanded a creative solution. Am I right in saying that there was people kind of knew what Now was, but was there a little bit of confusion about specifically what the Now packages were, so to speak?
Yeah, it was. They had decent awareness, but it was more about that qualified awareness is what we call it. So they knew they existed, but didn't quite understand what they offered or what they offered differently from the other streaming services. A lot of people would have struggled to kind of point out what the difference is and what their offering was. When we looked at the product and we looked at the brief, it was very clear to us that we had what we were calling now at the best of both worlds. So in terms of content, they had all that depth and quality of what comes with traditional television products. They had HBO shows, they had all the Sky originals, and a massive one was the live sports. But they also then had the practical benefits of the streaming platforms. So it's a month-to-month bill. So you're not signing up to 24 months. You can cancel it, no contract, no installation, no box, you just download an app. So it was really the practical benefits of streaming, but also the quality of content that you get from more traditional TV packages.
So your job then was to kind of simplify that and just make people, I guess, more aware of to give them a better understanding of what the benefits are.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't understand what the benefits were and why they would choose it. A lot of people have, 2 to 3 streaming platforms, and it's not something that they're thinking that they need more of. They're not looking for more content, but what we needed to show them was there's a better way to get that content, not necessarily just more of it.
And so incoming Fox and Owl, what was the thinking behind Fox and Owl, and how was that designed to kind of address this issue as a problem?
Yeah, a couple of reasons why we chose those characters. Firstly, we had a lot of information to get across. So we needed to land a lot of information, explain what the product was, but also do it in a way that felt entertaining, quite charming and quite warm. They also had a problem with some of their brand personality and their traits weren't coming through. The brand had started to kind of recede in terms of its personality, and we wanted to inject more fun, more boldness, more relatability. So we figured pretty early on we'd need characters to be able to do that so that they could give a message and get a message across, as well as injecting that personality into the brand. And we also knew this was a brand building exercise. It wasn't just going to be a one and done. So we landed on an owl and a fox, 2 Irish animals, both nocturnal, so makes sense why they'd be up watching television late at night.
Oh, House of the Dragon. Deadly. Oh, there's Damien now. Who? Damien. Targaryen. Who? Well, he's her husband and her uncle. Humans are animals. Oh, look, the golf song. Who? McElroy. They must have added sports. Now is class like that. You can mix and match memberships, so you only pay for what you're into. This is for which one's better than an eagle?
An owl, obviously.
And were there any other animals in the mix? Did you have cats, gerbils, mice?
Anything
else?
anything
Or was
else?
it fox and owls at the outset?
I think we got to the fox and owl pretty quickly. They made the most sense and they're both very Irish. Also, owls quite wise, foxes quite smart. So we wanted, our platform was now you know, so it felt like their characteristics as animals made sense with the message and the brand that we were trying to get across as well.
So tell me, what was it? You go to the awards, you have an expectation or a hope that you might win. Can you tell us what it's like when you hear the announcement?
Well, we were the very last of the bunch. I mean, the very last of the night. So you're sitting through the whole afternoon, very nerve-wracking. Everyone wants to win an Effie. Especially, the agency teams, client teams. It's really important to everybody to win an Effie. So it's, you're nervous and you really want it. All the speeches happen, the committee get up and they really stress how tough it is to win an Effie and how hard the judges are and the work for good reason because the standard is so high and we never want to see that slip. So you're super aware of how important not just the work is, but also how the case is presented to the judges. So that's very nerve-wracking. And then when the moment comes and, you kind of have that moment of, oh my God, it's real, you got it. Especially when it's a gold. It's very exciting. It's brilliant.
And let's end on that positive note. That's it for the Effies edition of the Irish Marketing Podcast this week. Thanks to Kate at IAPI for pulling it all together. And late congratulations to all of the winners in the Effies, regardless of colour. It's absolutely a huge achievement. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share and follow and tell a friend. It's all recorded, edited and mixed at Tin Pot Production Studios. Back next Friday, wherever you pick your pods. Thank you for listening.